AC Braddock, CEO of Eden Labs, gives us her story, and we get into extractions a little bit. Certainly a big part of the industry, is certainly a big focus of regulators and legislators as new states come online. So hope you enjoy this chat with AC Braddock. Okay, so we've got the AC Braddock from Eden Labs. AC, thanks so much for giving us a little time.
Thank you.
So you have been doing this for a while. I mean, it's coming up on 7 years that you guys are in the industry. Is that about right?
Well, actually, Eden Labs has existed since 1994. I just came into being CEO since 2010, but I was advising on sales and marketing since about 2006.
Okay. All right. Well, then all that adds up to a ton of experience, I would say.
Yeah, I think that, I was interested about the concepts of these interviews, and I think they're great, but obviously it makes me think about Malcolm Gladwell and his book Outliers. So those, having some natural ability in 10,000 hours is what it takes before you're truly successful. So seems like we're getting close. I am. Eden definitely is.
We're getting close to the 10,000 hours. So you buy into that. You buy into that principle.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that's the reason why we used to have mentorships and apprenticeships, and it's a shame that we don't really have that anymore, because there's a lot that, an individual can teach another individual in that kind of setting.
Right. Well, you've got, a fair amount of experience, kind of running stuff before you got to Eden Labs. But let's set the picture of and set the landscape of what Eden Labs is doing now, because you guys are doing a ton. You're based there in Washington, but give us just a sense of how the business is working here in the fourth quarter of 2015.
Well, it is exciting as usual. This team of people is extremely talented and intelligent, and they have a wide array of experience. But I'm constantly trying to get them to stop innovating. I was just like, no, you can't change this yet. We have to produce these things. And but we're getting ready to launch a whole new gen system, which is going to be really exciting for the business community and what they're going to be needing. So we're pretty excited about it.
Okay, and what you're working on, when is that due out?
It's going to be out second quarter next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that that's another generation of the high flow CO2 system. And I think this is probably Eden's 9th generation system, maybe. Eden's definitely had its 10,000 hours in years and years and years ago.
Totally.
But yeah, and then also there's a whole distiller line that's also been recently innovated to be able to do new things. So that's exciting. We're able to figure out a way to make our winterizer, which does a distillation, so it can make the clear.
Aha. And you have figured that out, or you're working on that?
No, we figured it out. It's so the winterizing system will be able to do winterization, distillation, and also make the clear, which is pretty huge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And why do you think folks were kind of demanding that? What were they telling you when you went to work on that?
Well, it's like anything. There are trends, and the clear has been trending for some time, and it's interesting, really, because how the clear came about was just taking really horrible plant material and really bad oil and refining it down even more. Of course, it loses its entire terpene profile, and so that's why you have to add the terpenes back in.
Right.
But it's a popular product, and it's, there's a market for it. So we figured out a way to use one of our current systems to do that.
Love it. And you take the terpenes and kind of put them aside, is how it's been described to me, and then you add them back in. Is that about right?
Well, when you're making the clear, you can do that, but typically the material itself doesn't have a whole lot of terpene profile in it. It's because it's usually bad material. It's how that came about. Of course, that will change as people just want to make the clear as a product itself. But certainly with the CO2 process, you can fractionate off the terpene, set it aside, and continue a run to take out all of the solids and waxes, and then winterize that, and then put the terpenes back in order to create a more fluid oil for a vape pen, so you don't have to add, things to it like PPG and PEG and all that stuff.
Exactly, because who wants that anyway? What are folks telling you about CO2? I mean, you know that we had Brandon on from Wham Oil. But what are other folks telling you about the CO2 systems that you're putting out, the high flow?
Well, it's a great joy, actually, to hear all of the lovely things that people have to say about the high flow system. I just got a text message from a company in Colorado that said their extraction team has tried every system out there, and they just the Eden high flow is the standard by which all other systems are judged. And it's always nice to hear that, and we hear that over and over and over again.
Right. All right. Well, okay. So now we've set the scene. Obviously, we've got quality product coming out of Eden Labs. We've got you with the job title, what was it? Oh, right, CEO. And you've been there for a bunch of years. You said you had to stop the team from innovating. Hey, guys, let's make sure that we're getting out what we need to get out, and let's do the thing that we're doing instead of the next thing. You've got a great team over there. How do you keep them going? How do you keep them innovating in the right trajectory, if you will?
Well, that's an interesting prospect, as our company structure is lateral. Mm-hmm. So we're very team-oriented, and we don't have much hierarchy. So it does pose problems sometimes with, you would think it actually would pose problems with accountability, but actually what I have found with this team is they overstep their boundaries. They are incredibly self-motivated, and just keeping them and going in the same direction. I guess I'm a little bit like a coach that way, and we just regroup and focus on what the company's focus is every month or every quarter, depending on how often that needs to happen. But that's how we keep it going, and it's pretty simple. I mean, actually, it's kind of a motto at Eden, and is we make things simpler. That's the whole thing that Fritz Chess, who founded the company, how he got into this was, finding systems that he wanted to use to do extractions, but he just thought they were too complicated and too expensive, and he just simplified them all. So we just try and simplify everything, and I think that's why it works so well. And the systems work so well because they're really intuitive. Right.
And you're talking about Fritz, obviously your partner in crime there, right?
Yes, Fritz Chess. Yep.
We shouldn't say partner in crime, I guess, because we are talking about legal cannabis. I should point that out.
Yep.
So you made kind of an analogy to a coach, and so that brings in kind of sports metaphors. It also sounds like with the artists, if you will, that you have in residence, and the kind of the flat structure, it also sounds a little bit like an advertising agency. So,
Oh,
first your
interesting.
analogy, as far as the sports analogy, the coach, do you have sports in your background? Is that something that you did as a kid?
No, not on a team. I mean, I skied and snowboard and surf, but they're solo activities.
Well, but those count. I mean, did you kind of compete? And if so, did you have a coach?
No, I didn't compete, but now that you say that, I do every year at this beginning of like ski season. I always take a class, and
Aha.
yeah, because people get in bad habits, and you need somebody else to look at what you did and to give you feedback and evaluate you and pat you on the back and all of that. So yeah, there's definitely a parallel there. And
Yeah,
people have asked me, like, you teach people how to ski. Why would you do that? I'm like, well, professional skiers have coaches. Why wouldn't I?
exactly. What have you noticed that the best coaches instill in you, even in the kind of skiing atmosphere?
Self-awareness. I think, understanding where your weaknesses and strengths are, definitely.
Yeah,
Which is
that.
another, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's another huge formative structure of the company, and that is the Strength Finders books.
Hmm.
They was a whole concept, a business concept formulated by the people who do the Gallup polls on concentrating on people's strengths in a business instead of their weaknesses. So you've got somebody who's, in sales and they don't, their skills in one particular area aren't that great, like administrative, bookkeeping, whatever. And a lot of companies would spend a lot of time and money getting them training for that. But the smart thing to do is just get them training on the things they're really good at, and that makes them feel better and work harder and be happier themselves, and then hire somebody to do the things that they aren't good at that those people are good at.
Right. Kind of chase the wins within the person type of deal.
Yep. Push everybody's boundaries and keep building on their own growth.
Love it. And as far as people building and the team that you have, I kind of heard format that was or a structure that was similar to ad agency. Do you have any of that in your background?
Well, I had intended to go into advertising at the University of Washington, and
Uh,
I loved school. I had so many credits, all kinds of different things, mostly history and philosophy and languages. And finally, I was like, all right, I need to get a degree. And so I went in to apply for the advertising program, and then one of the only times I ever went into a counseling office. And they're like, oh no, you've got almost a 4-point average, you're fine, just apply next quarter. So I went to apply next quarter, and they had canceled the program.
hey.
So everybody who was in got grandfathered in, and I said, all right, what do I have the most credits in? I'm done. so, so advertising would have been a wonderful path to go down, but I just lived it instead of studying it.
I see. Okay. All right. And then, so what did you kind of fall into? It sounds like you wanted to go here, you stayed there, and then kind of where did you fall into as far as work after school?
Well, I went to school directly after high school and then left and had a couple of businesses. One of them was in Miami, Florida,
Uh-huh.
which was a clothing company,
And this
which
was
was,
your business. You said I had a couple businesses. This is your business.
well, I was hired by this company to help them with their visuals, their store organization and their windows, and then they came to realize that I was actually designing things. And then I started designing the clothing, and then I started organizing the manufacturing of the clothing, and then they made me a partner. And we ended up with about 6 or 8 reps across the country and selling to Nordstrom's and Saks and manufacturing out of Miami. It was fabulous. I loved it.
That's amazing. And you're the age of someone that's still in college at the time.
Yeah, I think I was 26.
What made you such an early achiever, AC?
You know, I've always been a very busy person. I'm definitely a workaholic, or I don't know if I'm consider a workaholic. I just enjoy doing things.
Uh-huh.
But I also had an idea in my head at that age that I wanted to make $1 million before I was 30, which I got pretty close, but it didn't happen.
Okay. I'm sorry to
I had to
hear.
wait. That had to wait till later. That was fine. I was actually really quite pleased with the progress that I did make, and it made me realize that I pushed my boundaries extensively, and I did okay. So that gave me a platform to just keep going and continue to be an entrepreneur. So I went back
Fantastic.
to
You
I went
got
back to Seattle after that and finished up school.
All right, so you're originally from Seattle. You go down to Miami. You kind of pick up this whole crazy job, which turns into you having partnership in the company. You figure you've done your job there. You go back to Seattle and continue with school.
Well, that's close. I'm actually
Okay.
originally from I'm actually originally from Tennessee, but my parents did move out here when I was 7. So
Oh, oh,
I'm
okay.
kind of I'm almost a Seattleite, but not
Almost a
quite.
Seattleite. All right, so we're off by 7 years. Apologies to
Yeah,
Tennessee,
yeah,
and I guess go Vols is what we would say there.
yeah. Lady Vols.
Oh wow, sure. Oh, the basketball team is amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so you get back to Seattle, which you moved to when you were 7, to go to go back to school, and then did you finally finish with a degree of some sort?
German language and literature.
Of course, I was going to say,
You saw that coming, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so did I. Not really.
What's with the German, Braddock?
Um, Well, I was really into history and philosophy, and then when I was in Miami, I met this German guy, and I started to learn the language just because I thought it would be fun. And then the more I got into it, I thought, wow, how cool! I can read Nietzsche in German.
Oh wow.
And then I got into Kant and Kafka, and it was great. And the history was just so fascinating on so many
Yeah.
levels.
I mean, I remember those names from my personal history with cannabis. So I'm with you right there.
Yep, yep. They go hand in hand, especially
Uh,
Kafka.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. But sativa, please. I know we're not supposed to, but anyway. So and by the way, my last Adler means eagle in German, which I'm sure you know.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah,
Duh. Didn't even make that connection.
yeah. So rather than talk about my history of the fact that my last name is German, let's continue. So, what did you do with this German degree? I would imagine not much. Yes or no?
Nope, not much. I got a scholarship to go study in Germany from it, and that was great.
Okay.
Actually, it
Which
was pretty
city?
cool while I was there. I was in Tübingen,
Oh,
which
wow.
is in the Black Forest area in the south of Germany, and
Uh-huh.
the town there had a castle from the 1200s, I think. So cool. I loved the architecture. Just traveling all around and going to see all of that and the history was amazing. But it was really, while I was there too, someone was caught with 10 grams of hashish,
Uh-huh.
and they did not prosecute.
Was it
So,
already decriminalized? No.
no, it wasn't decriminalized, but of course that ruling just was like, okay, well, I guess I can not worry about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean did that kind of kernel stay in your mind upon entry into the cannabis industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was in college, my roommate Frederick had a really good friend who had sent him all of these little packages of all these dried herbal things like kava kava and yohimbe and all of these things. And I had a really strong interest in whole plant medicine for a long time. And so I was so intrigued by this. And, oh, I lost my train of thought there.
No, that's fine. You were talking about the packages that Frederick was getting, and
Oh,
all
right.
sorts of different. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I got to finally meet this guy who was Fritz, and I think it was about 1999,
Hmm.
we would go up to Canada quite a bit, up to Vancouver. And of course, there was a cafe there where you could smoke marijuana and you're in the cafe. And it was a pretty open culture at that point. And that was another little seed.
Hmm.
And then Fritz approached me because there was a dispensary, I think one of the first dispensaries in Vancouver that he wanted to get into and talk to the people who owned it and ran it, but it was a group of women, and they weren't terribly receptive to he and our friend. So
Uh-huh.
they asked me to help out.
OAC, do you mind making a sales call for us?
I'm like, no, I'm really good at putting people together and networking, and this is fascinating. So yeah.
Can you describe the kind of conversation that you had? Was it what you were expecting? How did it all go?
Oh, it went great. It's unfortunate what happened there in Canada, where it kind of all got shut down.
Hmm.
But it's coming back in a more controlled way. I guess
Indeed.
that's
Well, I mean, you've got your, absolutely. You've got the producers that are approved by Health Canada, but you also do have now a thriving dispensary community in the city of Vancouver. So we've been talking a lot to the folks up in Canada, and they've got an election coming up, any minute now. So we'll see what happens with that. But let's get back to Seattle. I would imagine you did this sales call for Fritz, and then how did the business partnership get fostered from there?
well, I don't know if I'd even really call it a sales call. He was just more interested in what they were doing and the culture and everything about that. He wasn't. Fritz is a scientist in mind. He's not really a salesperson. He's infinitely curious about everything when it comes to botanical extraction of any kind. So I think it was more about that than anything else. But
It was
after,
more, what's going on in there type of thing.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Got
just
it.
kind of understanding what was happening with that market and maybe what were they doing in extractions, because he was certainly doing extractions by then. He'd been doing extractions since 95 or 6, I think, and this was 7 years later.
Yeah.
So I think he was just really curious. But after that, I didn't become involved with Eden for another 5 or 6 years. And
Well, what did you do in the interim, and then what brought you back?
in the interim, I was in real estate. And someone suggested that I get into it. Actually, it was a developer who met me and thought I would be really good at that. So I tried it out, and lo and behold, I was really good at it. And ended up doing mostly projects, new construction projects, ending up, in the built green community, doing large built green projects, which were fantastic. The last project I had was amazing. I worked with like 6 of the top architects in the country and 10 of the best builders, and it was interesting getting them to understand why they should be building green, because I thought it would be more expensive. And
Right.
so we started to talk to them about it, and they're like, look, you're already doing this. That's green. You're already building this way. That's green. You should be marketing it, because it's wasted marketing. If it's a wasted effort, if you're doing it, you might as well be marketing it.
Right. Why not?
And that kind of that's the same with CO2 for extractions as well, because a lot of they banned light hydrocarbon extraction for food in Europe a long time ago, but we still do that in this country. Lots of hexane that extracts a lot of the oils that you'll find in going through your grocery store. When you open up your refrigerator, you get a face full of hexane.
Right.
And of course, we would love to see
CO2, see the cannabis industry move CO2 further over into the average market. I mean, we had nutraceuticals companies back 5-6 years ago who were using CO2 as a marketing tool on their packaging, extracted with CO2.
And that kind of calls into the, we're kind of skipping around a little bit, but that kind of puts into perspective exactly what extraction means and is for cannabis, and how similar it is to anything that you find in Whole Foods or Walmart, for that matter.
Well, it should be.
Right.
I mean, I definitely think that it's criminal. And I really don't know why there's not more lawsuits about not having access to this plant and the harm that it's causing people. But
the harm that it's causing people not to have it as medicine, you mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Well, that's a whole new way of going about it. Is being a little bit more litigious on the positive side.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-boggling to me why it's such a big deal when we have all these other horrible pharmaceuticals. I mean, ginger has health benefits. It's legal. I mean, obviously, there's no. Obviously, ginger can't get you high, but personally, having had a back herniation and being prescribed Oxycontin, I think it was Oxycontin or something like that. It was horrible.
Right.
I think I took it for about 2 or 3 days. It didn't do anything for my pain. Advil worked much better. And actually, that was the very first time that I had cannabis and had used it medically. It was when we were at a local co-op, and it was a little trade show, and we'd been on our feet all day, and everybody kept trying to hand me joints all day long, and I was like, no, I'm working. And
right.
So finally, at the end of the day, I'm like, all right. So then I realized that my back did not hurt anymore. And I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, it is pretty unbelievable, and it's amazing how much inaccurate information has been fed into the ether over the past 80 years of prohibition, and we've talked a lot about that. And it's good to hear that you yourself are a patient. But I want to know when you came back, or how did you come back to Eden Labs, and how did this whole thing work out with you being the CEO and really the company taking off?
Yeah. Okay. Well, Fritz and I and a couple of other buddies, we hung around together from '99 through about 2004, and we had lots of fun together, going up to Vancouver and just hanging out, and then in about 2004, we started dating, and then I was spending a lot more time with them, and I would hear him on the phone talking to people and talking them out of buying things. Somebody would call and they're like, oh, we want a CO2 system. And he goes, well, no, what you really need is this. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, they don't need that. They need this. This is the better extraction method. And I'm like, well, that might be true, but that's like somebody going to a BMW dealership, and you're the sales guy, and they want a BMW, and you're saying, no, get a Honda. It'll be just as good. And, they didn't go to the Honda dealership. They went to the BMW dealership. They're just going to think you're nuts and get another salesperson.
Right.
But, that's who he is. And so I would hear him, and I would say, you just... If that's what they want, then help them understand what it is they're buying first, and then walk them through the other options. And so that's what I first started doing with Eden Labs, was just the education process of helping people understand what it was, why they were buying it, what the alternatives were, so that they made an educated decision. It was really no different than anything else I'd been doing, if real estate or anything. I mean, people don't when they buy real estate, they don't know what they're doing. They need somebody to help to walk them through it, and that's basically the same process. So I was in this fantastic project, and Fritz is like, well, I would really love it if you would come run the company. I'm like, well, that would be really fascinating, but I'm in the middle of this project. And so I stayed with that project for another 2 years.
Oh,
And then which was great. And then I moved over to Eden, and I think since then, I think the company has grown over 1,000%.
well, yeah. Let's get into some of that growth because 2009, 2010, 2011. You've got growth there. When was really kind of, if we want to use a Malcolm Gladwell reference, the tipping point?
The tipping point was Colorado's legalization, really.
Right.
I mean, California certainly is mentionable, but that was really the tipping point.
And how did orders change? How did requests change? How did the day-to-day change?
Well, we used to sell to multiple different industries, and pretty quickly, all of our inquiries started to be about cannabis,
Right.
which was great. We had no problem with that. And there were no other CO2 systems at the time. We had no competition at all. There was one or two bigger companies here in the U.S., and there's a couple internationally, but there really wasn't anybody else. And so from that time forward, we've always been, trying to keep up with production because the calls just kept accelerating.
So in that kind of hyper growth, it sounds like now over the past couple of years, you have even ensured that there was innovation because of the team that you have. So, how do you kind of ensure that you continue on that hockey stick growth trajectory while innovating and bringing in new product?
Oh, it's hard. We completely redid the CO2 system in late 2011 to move away from pushing gas through a system to pushing liquid through a system,
Right.
which cut the extraction time in half and doubled the yield. So having those systems come on was really huge. And because he's been doing this for so long, I mean, and now that I have been in it long enough to kind of understand it, and I'm really good at marketing and product placement, you can see what the market's going to need next. So we just keep thinking the way we think, and this system that we have now, we've actually held systems off the market, back from the market until the market was ready.
Mm-hmm.
Because it wouldn't have done us any good. It really wouldn't have done the market any good. There's still so much that people don't know about the extraction process and the different kinds of equipment that you can use to make a product. And so that innovation process is just innate. It's always happening. And so what we have to do is just treat it like a car and say, all right, well, we're not coming out with that model, and we're going to make sure all those pieces are put together that the market's going to need in a year and a half.
Do you think that this is kind of a left field question, so I'll continue with the baseball analogy and say if we're in the first inning as a cannabis industry, a legal cannabis industry, including adult use, where would you say we are with extraction? Because it does sound like you are leading the market with what you've got.
Yeah, but actually, it's my biggest frustration as the CEO of this company, and that is to help the rest of the market understand what they're buying and why. And especially since, we live in the Pacific Northwest and the West Coast, we're in the epicenter of extraction knowledge and growing knowledge. And it's, once you go past, Eastern Washington, really. The further you go east, the less people know, and it's part of the reason why I travel so much, is just to help people understand what products they're trying to make and why they're trying to make that kind of product and where that's going to go. I mean, a perfect example is CBD oils. I mean, the whole market's moving forward on CBD oils, which is great. Because, it's easy to legalize, it's easy to legislate.
Right.
There's no psychotropic effects. But really, to be truly effective, it has to be a whole plant extract. You have to have some THC in there,
Right.
which they'll get around to eventually. But as far as being in the first inning, we're still sitting in the dugout, basically, as far as I'm concerned, as far as where the understanding of extraction is currently.
As far as the market is concerned. And that's what I meant by...
The general market.
What's
The
that?
general market. The general market. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some people who know a lot about extraction. I mean, definitely. But the
Totally.
general market knows almost nothing.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by leading the market. Extraction, the process itself. It literally is fascinating to talk about it with even industry folks. Who
Yep.
it's just we've got a lot to learn, AC. So I guess
Yep.
what are the key principles that you would share with knowing that folks in the industry listen to this? That you would share about extraction, beyond the basics, but kind of key tentpole thoughts. And I am putting you on the spot, and I apologize.
No, that's okay. I'm happy to be on the spot. Do your research, and sometimes the extraction process you think you need is not actually what you need. And it's all driven by your product, which is driven by your business plan. So if you want to get real basic, really know your business plan and have your partners all under contract, make sure everybody's on the same page, that you have exit strategies. And from there, I'm continually amazed at the amount of information that people don't access in this information age. You can find out a lot just by going on Google and Googling it. And, there's a lot of consulting people out there right now who I talked to some folks just last week and asked them some really basic questions, and they had no idea. And they were consulting people who were spending millions of dollars.
Right.
So that's a danger. And the only way to get around that is to do the research yourself and to really understand your market and your product line. And if you can find good resources for honest information, utilize them.
It's basic kind of thought, but again, I know that you're a Malcolm Gladwell fan, but it gets right back to it. It's just, do the work, get the 10,000 hours in, have your basic understanding of what you're doing, and then succeed. But you can't do it without, all of those things. Right?
No, I think a lot of people are jumping into this, thinking that they're going, first of all, I think there's this whole big idea that everybody in this industry is making a bunch of money, which is not true.
What?
And so all these people get in and they think it's going to be really easy and they just have to grow some pot and then extract it and they're going to be multimillionaires. And
Right.
nothing is that simple.
Right.
And it's kind of sad to see, especially when you have investors coming out from, regular business coming in, and that's what they think. And then they're dealing with people who have never owned a business before, who have they're startups. I mean, we deal with startups pretty much every day, or
Sure.
return customers, and these people need help.
Yep.
And the investors that come in don't understand the culture, they don't understand the market, and it's a tremendous amount of pressure that these startups are under.
Yep.
The rules and the regulations and the changing in the rules and the regulations and the finding the funding and then getting the funding and then the amount of equity they have to give up or the amount of interest they have to give back. I mean, it's the tenacity of people in this market. It astounds me, and I have so much admiration for them.
Absolutely. And even, I mean, you've got your startups, but even experienced business people, kind of the folks that have come in the past kind of 18 months or so, you mentioned regulations, even folks that have tremendous business acumen are still getting, knocked constantly, day after day after day after day,
Yeah, that's what I mean. That
Yeah.
these people that come in who have business experience need
Yeah.
to realize that those startups need their experience, but they also need to understand and have the people who have the startups who've been in the culture educate them
Yeah.
and have a much more even and equitable relationship, because this is definitely not normal business. I mean, they start getting all over about pesticides and cannabis extractions, and I'm just sitting there scratching my head. I'm like, okay, well, I think there's like several huge international companies like Monsanto
Yeah.
who, we eat pesticides in our food all day, every day. And if
Yeah, I was
this
going to say,
industry,
have you ever eaten an apple?
yeah, exactly, or strawberries or spinach, they're loaded.
Right.
And so if this industry, that's one of the things I love about being in this industry is all of the other things it touches that can be huge social reform. And our food and how it's grown and processed is definitely at the top of the list.
Yeah,
Because
that's it.
if they're going to scrutinize this industry, they're, one finger back, four fingers, or one finger forward, four fingers back. You got to look at everything else too. You can't just singularly examine something and regulate the hell out of it and not look at everything else.
Well, that's it. I mean, we're in the process, of seeing this industry not only be created, but also potentially be on the leading edge of these things that we're talking about. And then once that happens, then yeah, there's the other four fingers. Let's look at other industries and see why can't they be as good as cannabis, right, AC?
Yes, and that is another thing that keeps me going every day, is just the thought of leading a technology company in this time of a whole new industry, and being able to take a whole new industry and grow it as responsible business, as socially responsible business, and deal with all those things of growing organic and pesticides and sexual discrimination and criminal prosecution. I mean, it just is so deep, and how this goes and how far it can reach. It's really stimulating.
It's amazing. It really is. And that's a good place for me to kind of go ahead and ask you our final questions that we like to ask everybody. And so, you might know these, but I'll say them again just in case. What has most surprised you in cannabis? What has most surprised you in life? And then on the soundtrack of AC Braddock's life, name one song, name one track. So first things first, you've been talking about how different cannabis is than everything else, quite frankly, on earth, right? What has most surprised you about cannabis?
Well, from those early days of, just enjoying cannabis and then having it turn into an industry, just like I said, everything that the industry can touch that will improve, it's just all the humanitarian things that it touches. Yeah. That were alive and well in the 60s and the 70s and kind of were squelched, and they're back again, and we've made progress, and that's surprising. I mean, we are we are nowhere close to being done.
Right.
Long way to go.
Right.
But we've made progress.
Well, yeah, it's those kind of principles are back with capitalism backing us up, right?
Yep.
So you almost can't go wrong. What has most surprised you in life so far?
Well, I guess the thing, I don't know if it's a surprise, I guess it's a little bit of a surprise, the thing that I'm most grateful for, I never thought I would get married. I never thought, I didn't. I never thought never thought I would find somebody that I had so much in common with, that just brought me so much joy and adventure. And I have that now, and I'm grateful for it every day.
Yeah, I mean, Fritz Chess is a pretty laid back guy.
He seems real laid back.
Yeah.
But actually, he's not all that laid back.
I see. Interesting. Okay, so I've only seen the one aspect then.
Yep. No, he's always thinking, and when you really have to pay real close attention is when he gets real quiet.
I see. The wheels are turning.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think the entire industry is thankful that you guys found each other. It has produced great things industry-wide. So that final question, right? Maybe the toughest one on the soundtrack of your life. Name one song.
Oh, this was very, very, very tough. But having been born when I was, and having my formative years in the hippie generation, and going through the last few decades, I think, and the fact that I'm an Aquarius, I'm going to have to say the age of Aquarius.
Oh, wow. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, AC.
We are living it, Seth. We are totally living it. All you have to do is look around at all these humanitarian movements that are going on, how far they've come. We are definitely in it.
Wow. That's fantastic. It's already playing in my head. So let's each go enjoy that. AC, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciated the conversation. And let's catch up maybe Q1, Q2 when the new machine is out. How about that?
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Seth.
And so there you have AC Braddock. Certainly one of our great women leaders here in cannabis. She did a lot to tell us about how Eden Labs got to be where it is, and obviously how she got to be where it is. And very much appreciate her time, AC Braddock.